It looks like the problems with Bill Thompson run quite deep. Welcome back to Bronx Tales with your host, Bronxy B, and me. I'm Logan. Thank you guys for being here. It seems like Bill Thompson has a long history of misconduct, and today we're going to dive into a case that Bill Thompson handled in 1999, which I believe is just another prosecutorial railroading. So let's dive into another case out of Kendrick, Idaho, that Bill Thompson single-handedly built on hearsay rather than any physical evidence. The question I raise is, how far will Bill Thompson go to secure a conviction? This case involves a rural cabin, 2 deaths, a web of cooperating witnesses, and a defendant sentenced to death under a system the Supreme Court later ruled unconstitutional. The case: Idaho versus Dale Shackleford. The deeper we look into this case, the more questions we have. The more questions keep coming up. Did the prosecutor build the case on real evidence or on deals, on pressure, on testimony from people that are just trying to save themselves? Let's break it down. So the crime happened in May of 1999. On a rural property in Kendrick, Idaho, 2 people were found deceased after a fire in a small cabin. The victims were Donna Fontaine and Fred Palahniuk. Investigators initially determined that the fires were set intentionally and that both victims had been killed before the fire started. Immediately, the case turned to just one man, Dale Shackleford. The prosecutor brought extremely aggressive case, lots of charges. We've talked about overcharging in the past. 2 counts of first-degree murder, first-degree arson, conspiracy to commit murder, conspiracy to commit arson, and preparing false evidence. This wasn't just a murder case. The state alleged a multi-person conspiracy involving several people connected to Dale Shackleford, and the prosecutor pursued the death penalty. So here's the prosecutor's theory. He said the motive was revenge because 2 years earlier, Donna Fontaine had accused Shackleford of rape. The prosecutor claimed that Dale blamed her for his legal trouble. Donna Fontaine was Shackleford's ex-wife. They divorced in 1997. But by the time the crime happened in 1999, both of them had moved on. I mean, Dale was engaged to be married and Donna had a boyfriend, and they didn't have any contact with each other. According to the state, Shackleford planned the murders, went to the cabin, killed both of the victims, and then set the house on fire to destroy evidence. But here's where it gets complicated, because the state had a major problem, which was they had no physical evidence tying Shackleford to the crime. Sound familiar? But no, the difference in this case from Brian Kohberger's case is there wasn't even false made-up evidence. There was no evidence, none. So what evidence did they have? Well, the prosecutor's case relied heavily on testimony from alleged co-conspirators. Several people ended up testifying against Dale Shackleford, including his fiancée, her 2 elderly parents, and 2 friends of both of them. But all of these witnesses had one thing in common. It was that Bill Thompson approached them and said, I'm going to charge you, and you with the exact same crime as Dale Shackleford's getting charged with. Unless, of course, you tell us he did it. Each of these witnesses that did not witness the crime got with investigators and told their story of how they thought Dale Shackleford could have committed this crime. Just keep in mind, while they're telling their stories, they're facing very serious charges. So, of course, they have to make their stories fit so they don't end up in prison. The problem with their stories with investigators is every time they met with investigators, their story changed. The details became more exaggerated, and they didn't completely match with each other. Conflicting timelines, overlapping events, didn't really make it possible. So were these witnesses telling the truth, or were they just telling the prosecution what they wanted to hear so they didn't spend their entire lives in prison? I'll let you decide. The defense argued, were these people telling the truth, or were they just trying to save themselves? The defense said, there's no murder weapon, no fingerprints, no DNA, no eyewitnesses. Despite all of the issues with the witnesses and their ever-changing story and timeline, Dale Shackleford was sentenced to death, but not by the jury, by one single judge. But that sentence didn't last long. Dale Shackleford has continued to fight his case and has won appeal after appeal after appeal, because it is unconstitutional for one judge to sentence a man to death, as that is the job of the jury to decide. So his death penalty sentence was overturned, and he's now serving 2 full life sentences, but he continues to appeal. Years later, in mid-2000s, Idaho Supreme Court discovered another error involving how the judge sentenced Shackleford. His spoken words in the courtroom did not match the written words that Dale Shackleford signed. So even the sentencing process had to be corrected. I mean, what are these people doing in Idaho? So why was this case yet another railroad of Bill Thompson? It sounds like Bill Thompson started off his career schmoozing with judges and building cases from a narrative and not from evidence. Bill Thompson has been doing this for decades. This is not the second case or the third case. There's many of these cases. Matter of fact, every case that Bill Thompson has actually taken to trial, which is not very many, I can count on one hand. They've all been overturned for one reason or another, but mostly from misconduct by Bill Thompson. Now, we all know this, but I just want to point out as a reminder, Bill Thompson is listed on the Brady list. Bill Thompson is on the Brady list due to misconduct, being a liar, being biased, and forcing people into plea deals. He literally charged Dale Shackleford's fiance and her elderly parents and 2 friends with conspiracy to commit murder unless they hurry up and thought of a story so they didn't go to jail themselves. Dale Shackleford still remains in jail, and he's still convicted and serving 2 life sentences. But we have a pattern here, a very obvious pattern that has lasted years and decades with Bill Thompson, the prosecutor in the Bryan Kohberger case. There was no evidence in the Dale Shackleford case. There was no evidence in another case that I'm going to dig into in another video. There was no evidence in the Bryan Kohberger case. Do you see what's happening here? There is something going on with Bill Thompson within these courtrooms. And in my opinion, I believe that there is something going on with Bill Thompson and these judges in these courtrooms. Why are these judges making it so easy for Bill Thompson to railroad people, to be biased in a courtroom, to lie about evidence, to use words like "we believe" and "he was near"? Same language was used in every case. It's not fact, it's not evidence. It's a story that's built into a narrative that's fed to a jury that doesn't know any different. Many people on a jury think if you have somebody in a courtroom that's being charged, well, they must have done something to be connected to it. Bill Thompson cares about his status in the community. Bill Thompson cares about his numbers on paper. Bill Thompson cares about Bill Thompson and Bill Thompson only. He does not care about any of the people he brings in to a courtroom and walks away, leaving them in shackles to live their life out in prison forever. Door shut, case closed. But as I've been digging, many cases are not that simple. It's not case closed. And in fact, it's just a story. Bill Thompson is just a storyteller. There's something deep within these Idaho courtrooms, but specifically with Bill Thompson and his connection with these judges, and we'll get to the bottom of it.
You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. Looking for change, looking for pain, pulling a mob, pushing a train. I never